Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Aragon, and this is my cultural interaction field assignment, a look into Haitian culture in America. So, first, I'm going to begin with going over a brief history of Haitian culture. So, Haiti is the most mountainous country in the Caribbean, and it shares an island with the Dominican Republic, which was formerly controlled by Spain. The population of Haiti is almost entirely of African descent due to the African diaspora during the 16th through 19th centuries. Haitian Creole and French are the official languages of Haiti today, and French is still prominent because of the colonial history in Haiti. And Haiti was previously under rule of France, and during this time it was known as Saint Domingue. Haiti is also known for being the first country to ever be founded by former slaves. And Haiti is also known to be one of the poorest countries of the Western Hemisphere, and it has faced a number of natural disasters and political difficulties over the past centuries. For example, a recent 7.2 magnitude earthquake in August of this year, which led to the destruction of many homes and left thousands dead and seriously injured. And the indigenous peoples who were first on this island were Taino and Siboney, and today only 2% of the population remains Native American. And also, the official religion of Haiti was Roman Catholic because of the colonial rule of France. And here are some of Haiti's most notable figures and historical. Toussaint Louverture, he is known as the father of Haiti because he led the slave revolt, which eventually led to the emancipation of slaves in Haiti. And he led Saint Domingue in 1801, but was captured by French imperial forces and eventually died in France. And the second person, he ruled after Louverture. His name is John Jacques Dessalines. He continued the rebellion that Louverture began until finally defeating France. And he was the first ruler after the new nation of Haiti was established, and he founded the new nation of Haiti. So now I will go into the background of the individual whom I interviewed. So meet Amy. Amy lives in Orlando, Florida, is 18 years old, and speaks English, French, and Haitian Creole. Amy was born and raised in Orlando, Florida, and their parents were and grandparents were born and raised in Haiti. So here I'm going to discuss some of the cultural values and social norms of Haitian culture, which I learned from my interview with Amy. And the first topic that I'm going to discuss is gender roles. Women in Haitian culture are viewed usually as housewives or bearers of the children, and they're fully devoted to their men and to God. And men in Haitian culture are viewed as the breadwinners or the head of the household, the providers, the leaders, and usually seen as more important. And Amy says that these views are often implied but weakly match up in her household. And on the topic of verbal communication, usually at a gathering, Haitians are expected to greet everyone who is present, even if they are strangers, and they can do this with handshakes, hugging, or cheekbone kisses. And some Haitians may speak more loudly and animated than what is customary in American society. It is important in Haitian culture to always ask about a person's family and their own well being, and it's thought of as rude to whistle around elders and adults. And it's kind of a rule to never mention anything satanic since most Haitians are Christian or Catholic. And talking back, not listening to, or disrespecting elders is extremely disrespectful. Cursing and vulgar language is also disrespectful. Next, on nonverbal communication. In Haitian culture, things such as sucking your teeth, pointing with your index finger at somebody, or prolonged eye contact with elders can all be seen as disrespectful or rude. And being of service and greeting people is generally considered respectful. It's important to always look presentable, happy, and eager to be of service to your family members or to company. And touching mostly depends on familiarity with the person. Amy says that Haitians are not huge lovers of physical touch and you would only do so during greetings, and passing gas or burping in front of others is a huge no no. Late arrivals to things such as events or gatherings may not be seen as disrespectful, but it can be disrespectful when you arrive late in business engagements. And some of the cultural values that are taught to children in Haitian households are that they must respect their elders always, and the family is the most important relationship and responsibility. And another thing that's taught in the households are the three L's: L'Église, L'école, and L'école, which means school, church, and home. And those are just important values in Haitian culture. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about Amy. The first thing they said was about their values. I believe deeply in respect despite age, gender, and individuality. Everyone should be able to provide, clean, and look after those they love. People should do whatever works for them despite what society or others say. And Amy also said that they celebrate Haitian Independence Day, which is January 1st. We usually celebrate New Year's by drinking a soup called soup jomu, which is made with squash. We drink the soup to celebrate our freedom from the French who forbade Haitian slaves from consuming squash and soups. And Amy says they also celebrate Haitian Flag Day, which is on May 18th. We celebrate the flag because it symbolizes Haiti's freedom from the French oppression and Haiti's historical feat of being the first Black, free, independent country in the New World. Mimi also says that what they find interesting about their culture is their language. It's so amazing how my ancestors created a language by merging three cultures together. I also find Haiti's history to be the most significant. My ancestors aided with many revolutions in South America, helped fight in the American Civil War, and put a lot of fear on slave owners in America. They were so powerful, and it inspires me to be the change I want in my life. Amy also talked about her experience with culture shock, which she's experienced many times in her life. But the first time was when starting elementary school, and it was new to be surrounded by a lot of Hispanic and Latino peers at school, and they believe it was fun to learn about the cultures, but it was also kind of isolating, especially because of the negative stigmas and stereotypes surrounding Haitian people and culture. Now I'm going to talk about my own culture and compare Haitian culture with my own. So, some observations that I made about similarities between our cultures were that they're both very formal cultures. For example, when meeting strangers or when speaking with adults, you are generally expected to be more formal. And both of our cultures also have very traditional gender roles and place a great importance on hospitality. We're both also first generation children of immigrant parents, and we have knowledge of our parents' native languages and histories. In both of our cultures, respect and obedience towards elders is also a very important value. There is generally a expectation to care for your elders, especially when they cannot do so anymore. And this a lot of the time can be because elders are the ones who take care of you, and it's just expected to have that returned as you're as an elder. And there are also major Roman Catholic influences in both of our cultures, just because of the colonial history of Haiti and El Salvador. And because of this, we're both raised in strict Christian homes. Tardiness in our cultures is generally accepted and even expected in some cases, but of course, again, not in business occasions or in more important things. Um, I believe in both cultures, people are more animated and generally speak at a higher volume in social situations. And some of the differences I observed were that we have similar greeting styles, but patting on the back and shoulder is more common in Salvadoran culture. And one thing I want to note is that El Salvador is the only country in Central America that does not have a coast on the Caribbean. And the language and culture of the Caribbean coast has never been present in El Salvador because of this, unlike the rest of Central America. So I think that creates a greater difference between our cultures. Salvadorans also have a strong sense of personal pride, honor, and dignity. This means they're sensitive to comments or actions that can jeopardize their standing among others. Salvadoran communication is also more indirect, while Haitian culture is more direct. There's also a difference between Independence Day in both cultures. I believe Independence Day has a much greater cultural value to Haitians and to Salvadorians, especially throughout generations. My own household does not even actively celebrate Salvadoran Independence Day. We mostly just acknowledge it, while Haitian Independence Day is celebrated by Amy's household by drinking soup on New Year's. And the Salvadoran independence from Spanish colonial rule was in 1821, but it was mostly just that. And Independence Day for Haitians also meant independence from colonial rule from France, but it also meant freedom from slavery, independence from slavery. And even more so, Haiti being the first black and free country under the political power of former slaves, I believe holds much greater significance. So here are some of my references, and thank you for listening.